speaking with Leah D'Ambrosio, Chief Operating Officer of Bake Smart. This brand has been in the industry for a minute. This is a women-run company. I love it. They've got a mission to really just educate consumers about edibles, edible safety. I mean, there's so much need for it in the industry to have proper labeling so that children don't find gummies or candy that is adult food. And so Bake Smart is right there at the forefront to help educate not only businesses, but consumers on what we're putting in our body. Leah, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Oh, thank you for having me. I am so excited to be with Emerald because you've been around for a minute and it is such an honor to be here. So thank you.
Tell our audience how you first found cannabis or hemp. How did you make your way into the industry?
Well, being exposed to cannabis. So I'm 56. So I grew up in the 60s and 70s and in Northern California in Hillsburg. So that's right above San Francisco. It's a hippie community and cannabis was everywhere. It's like we grew up with it. My parents smoked, covertly as they can with nosy kids around. But my aunt, she chain smoked joints. That was, you went over to her house, just chain smoked. So I was around it a lot. I didn't really use it too much. I think my first exposure was like I was 12. And then I didn't use it again until high school, but I have a really bad tolerance. Like I'm not one of those people that can smoke and then like, oh, I can do all these things. I just laugh and then go to sleep. So for me, it was more when my stepfather got cancer. And, and also my son, I have a son who's 34 and he was part of that whole dare culture. So for me, it was like, oh my God, you're going to go down a slippery slope, don't do drugs, da, da, da. But then my stepfather got sick with cancer and they prescribed marijuana. And I'm like, wait a second. Well, what? You're prescribing marijuana. And so I started to do more research and I started to figure out, well, there's so many benefits. So then I love to bake. So I just started baking for people. People were asked, oh, hey, could you make me something? Because I make like scones and scones are a perfect vehicle for cannabis, right? All that fat and everything. So I was doing that. And then it was more like, oh, hey, these are too strong. Can you figure out how to do lower dosage so we can eat the whole scone? And so I was like, yeah. So I kind of taught myself how to do low dose, but through my stepfather and just through reaching out to people and helping them, by giving people's parents edibles, right? And kind of opening that door. That's how I got into it. I was living in Silicon Valley and I got laid off. And then it was right at the time when Oregon was going legal. And so I moved up here and started an edible company called Sconed. I was going to do my famous scones, but baked goods just weren't doing well, because you only have a really short shelf life and I didn't want to put preservatives. So I also make incredible toffee. So I just kind of pivoted, which you have to do. As you know, you got to pivot when you're an entrepreneur. And so I pivoted and it was great. And when I did that, that's kind of how Bake Smart was born because since I really wasn't in the industry per se, I didn't realize that edibles weren't marked in some way. I didn't realize that even like when I first got into it, childproof packaging wasn't even a big thing. And most people were like, you don't need to mark your edibles. And I'm like, if you're in my house, you do, because I like will eat whatever is out. And I've done that before and paid a horrible price. So for me, it was like, okay, I need to mark these. And then I met a manufacturer in Washington. They're like one of the biggest manufacturers of bakery decorations. And I told them my idea and they're like, yeah, let's do this. And so we created a whole line of Green Cross edible labels. And I put Green Crosses on my toffee. And what I loved about it was people intuitively knew immediately, oh, that's medicine. The Green Cross means medicine. It's an international symbol for medicine. And people would, even if they didn't know what marijuana, THC, a lot of older people don't, they would look at it and go, why is there Green Crosses on that? That's weird. Like what's going on with this food? And then you can say, yeah, it's got cannabis, it's medicine. And you start that conversation. And I got a lot of pushback. Many edible companies were like, literally get the F out of here. There was one famous company, it's a big company, I won't mention them, but on Twitter, they basically told us to F off, that we were effing stupid, that we had no effing business being here. It was horrible. And I'm just like, sorry, we need it.
Yeah, that's unfortunate, that resistance, because it almost seems like a no-brainer. why wouldn't you label this? You know, I mean, you don't want your children to eat this stuff and get sick. You don't want I mean, not that pets can read labels, but we've all heard, you know, the infamous, like, my dog ate the brownie, now I have to go to the vet. You know, it's all about just keeping things in the right place and properly labeled. You know, in addition to that story, what other hurdles have you come up against? I mean, let's talk about regulation for a minute. Are you trying to get in with any states to make this a policy?
I tried really hard. I lobbied really hard in California, and unfortunately, when I was lobbying, they actually had a bill that passed the Senate to mark edibles, but then it got gutted, like a lot of bills do. And it was at the same time that the fires in California happened in Santa Rosa because of fireworks, so they gutted it and put fireworks in there. And so people were interested and open to it, but it takes a lot of work to get the legislators on board. And, you know, you get a lot of pushback from the industry because a lot of the edible companies don't. And I even talked to a lot of people on the Cannabis Commission in California, and they were like, yeah, this is a great idea. And they could see the value, but I don't know, it's just an uphill battle. So thankfully, there are states that willingly mark their edibles, and that's like New Mexico and Massachusetts and Nevada and Colorado. And actually, at the same time I was coming out with my green crosses, Colorado had mandated that all edibles be marked because of that women's or kind of mothers groups, Smart Colorado. They didn't want edibles around kids. They wanted a red stop sign on the edibles. And then Washington, I think, wanted Mr. Yuck, but, you know, it was really bad. And there were some people, you know, championing for the Green Cross in Colorado, but at the end of the day, they decided on the diamond with the THC and the exclamation point. What's really a problem is that we don't have a truly universal symbol. So each state says they're using a universal symbol, but it's really not, because, you know, Colorado has a symbol, Nevada has a symbol, New Mexico has a symbol, Massachusetts has a horrible symbol. And now Maine is using Massachusetts and Ohio is using Colorado. But we've really got to work together, I believe, in order to choose a truly universal symbol, because the feds are coming. And when they come, there is a good chance, if we don't get it together, that they will say no edibles. You can get it in pill form. And that is something we don't want, you know? So we want to really kind of self-regulate, which is why I'm in the room still, you know, I'm the mom in the corner going, hey, mark your edibles. And I feel like literally like I'm at a party with a bunch of high schoolers and I'm telling everybody mark their edibles. And they're just like, no. And then when the feds walk in the room, they're going to go, Mom, what do we do? We got to mark our edibles. And I'm going to be like, yeah, so here I am. Here you go. So I know my time is coming. I'm not worried about it. But I really wish that more edible companies would take that responsibility, because honestly, if you proactively, like let's say you're in California and you proactively mark your edibles with a green cross, your insurance, I've talked to insurance companies, oh yeah, we'll give you a better rate if you mark your edibles. So, I mean, there's benefits to marking your edibles proactively in a way that immediately shows that. And it's cheap. I mean, literally to mark a gummy, it costs less than a penny. So it's not like this is cost. I mean, and that's the cost of the product. Obviously, you have to add on labor. So let's say even if it's 5 cents, it's like packaging costs. We have to look at it like that. And that's kind of some of the roadblocks I come against. But, you know, for those people that I am helping, they're actually really grateful. And we're really blessed that a lot of our clients are still with us, you know, almost 6 years later.
What are some of the personal core values to Bake Smart, you know, to really just keep you guys going through the tough times?
Well, I think that really we honestly, like, I started this business not so I could have a business and make money. I started it because I really care. I mean, I care about accidental consumption. And I think that really I care about, well, for Colorado, once they went legal, people didn't have a way to mark their edibles. So I love being able to help them. And when we came out the gate, I mean, this was probably a really bad business decision. My business mentor was like, what are you doing? But I priced our products intentionally low because most of the clients that were coming to me were very small. They're small companies. And if they didn't have a way to mark their edibles, they were going to go out of business. So for me, it's really just being there, supporting people, living with integrity, being transparent, being honest. You know, this is why we charge what we do. And and really just, I don't know, it's like hard to say, like, what are our core values? Our core values are just like being honest and being supportive, and really being that kind of shelter in the storm for some of these smaller companies. We organized the first ever summit dedicated, or conference dedicated completely to edibles. And it was all about edibles education. And that's really something that we know, until there's education, cannabis is not going to be widely accepted. And we featured, the doctor's knocks. And right now we're giving away that whole conference for free. You can just go to everythingediblesevent.com, and you get the whole entire 40 speakers talking about it. But the doctor's knocks, everything starts with the doctors, right? If you don't get your doctor on board, you're going to have a really hard time being prescribed cannabis. And they made such a great case for why we need to have cannabis in our system every single day, and not just through smoking and eating it, but through an edible, but also eating the plant, eating the entire plant. And so it's a really great resource. And that's what we love providing. I love making sure people are armed with the right information, because that elevates all of us. When we can share that information, we're all elevated.
So tell us, what is it like in your shoes for a day? When you go from, morning to night, what is it like in your position running the company?
Well, one thing that's really helped me is, and I didn't do this when I first started the company, I used to sleep until 7 and get up, and it just didn't really serve me very well. I probably could be a lot farther along had I not done that. But now I get up at 5:30. Meditation is really important. Meditation is a huge part of my life. And so, I'll meditate, journal, and then get my day started. And basically it's just, I have a virtual assistant. I highly recommend virtual assistants for any entrepreneur, because they are amazing. And so she's in the Philippines. So first thing in the morning, I have to connect with her because it's her nighttime. So I get that out of the way. And then really it's just connecting with my manufacturer, seeing what orders we are, following up with custom orders. And yeah, just kind of juggling so many different hats because we are really small, connecting with my guy who's my brand manager, and my web guy, and my social media guy. And so, yeah, it's just, it's a never ending thing, but I always try to end by 3 or 4, because I am starting so early, because it's really important as an entrepreneur to check out, to stop, to not carry it through into the night, because then you burn yourself out and you get really disappointed and really frustrated, because you're working all day into the night, which is what I used to do. And you don't get anything more done. If you can just really kill it in the day early on, then you're going to do just as well.
How do you feel, the industry sees women in cannabis, both men and women, and people from the outside of the industry? What do you think their perception is? Because we kind of have been doing a good job. I think 37% of the cannabis industry is held by, a position of power, CEO, whatnot, held by a woman. What do you think people think of us?
Oh my God. I love hearing that, because I always get chills. That is so awesome. And that's why I'm saying, this industry is made for us. If you're a woman and you want to get into business, come to the cannabis industry. Now, I think that for being a woman in cannabis, I'm from California. California has a completely different attitude than, let's say, if I'm in Illinois. I don't know how they're viewed. I would think it's probably a little bit harsher. I know moms have a really hard time, even moms in Oregon and California. If you're in the industry, you're a mom, I know that you deal with a lot of societal pressure, societal judgment about what you're doing. Oh, you're a drug addict. Oh, you're dealing drugs. You've got children, that kind of thing. I think that women are still shamed in the industry. If you're a mother, that is, I don't, for me, single woman, that didn't experience that. But again, West Coast is completely different than East Coast. I think that the women on the East Coast have it a lot harder than us. And again, that's why we have to be there for each other. That's why we have to be each other's support system, because you can get really down when you're an entrepreneur, as and you're going to have dark days. You're going to have days where you want to give up. And that's why it's really important to have friends and colleagues and associates around you that say, hey, look, don't give up. It's going to be okay. And don't listen to that person. And that's another thing. You can't listen to the noise out here. You've just got to have blinders and earmuffs and just keep going.
Where do you think the industry is heading? I mean, we have a new administration in the White House right now.
Yeah.
We're coming out of a foggy period, hopefully into a much brighter period. Where do you see the cannabis industry in the next 5 years?
Oh God, it's so funny because I think Ashley Pichello, the author of that the grass ceiling, you're breaking the grass ceiling. She said cannabis years are like dog years, and it's so true, right? It's like 1 year in cannabis is like 5 years. It's crazy. So in 5 years, gosh, I hope that we are federally legal and we are able to still have edibles and all these things, and that federal regulation helps us, not harms us. But I think there's going to be a lot more buy-in to the cannabis industry with doctors, professionals. I think that we're going to get a lot less pushback in the next 5 years. I think we're going to see some incredible products. There is so much potential for the industry, and there's so many people coming into this. And that's why, women have to get into this industry. Women are creative. They bring a sense of family, a sense of comfort, and they have some great products. And I know that I really hope that we take that percentage that you gave us, and it's 75% women, are in CEO or C-level positions. And that's what I really hope in 5 years. I mean, it gives me chills to talk about it because we are powerful as women. I mean, when we are doing our best, my God, there is no stopping us, because if we can have a child, and I know this from giving childbirth, believe me, no man could ever handle that pain. We have resilience and strength that they don't. So, we can move mountains. And I think in 5 years, you're going to see that number of C-level executives be women, and that's exciting.
This has been so fun. I've loved speaking with you. I know we could go on for hours and hours, but tell our followers out there, how can they find you? How can they work with you? How can they reach you?
Well, the easiest way is through our website. It's bakedsmart.org, not .com, .org. And then also, again, you can get a free pass to the everythingediblesevent.com. It's a ticket. We had 40 speakers. It was about 24 hours of content. And there's some really great, there's speakers that are talking about branding, like Ricardo Baca is talking about branding. We've got the Dr. Knox. We've got another really important speaker was Robin Griggs-Lawrence, who talked about the history. And I think it's really important that people are reminded that we were using marijuana freely before Prohibition ended. And then the man who was in charge of prohibition of alcohol, sorry about that, that's my little girl, needed a job. And so he decided, I'm going to attack marijuana. So we have to remember that. And it's really important to have that historical knowledge so that you can then share it with people when they come back and go, oh no, marijuana is dangerous. Marijuana is as bad as freaking opioids. And no, it's not. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's what's going to save your life.